Welcome to the Rethink overview. Today we're going to walk through the platform we use every day to collect data, complete session notes, and verify visits. I've broken this training into 5 main sections. First, we'll look at the Client tab and everything that comes with it. Then we'll move into the Staff tab, where we'll review policies and procedures. After that, we'll go over the Training tab and the requirements you'll need to meet. Next, we'll cover scheduling and how to stay compliant. And finally, we'll wrap up with some general guidance on session notes and data collection. The very first thing you'll see when you log into Rethink is the Client tab. This is where you'll find all of the clients assigned to you. When you select a client, you'll be brought to their demographic information. This includes their name, date of birth, address, and other key details. Now, notice at the top, you actually have 2 rows of tabs. Let's start with the second row. Here, you'll see Demographic Info, which we just reviewed. Next to it is Funders. This shows you what insurance the client has. Sometimes you'll see multiple insurances if they've switched providers. Later, I'll show you how to confirm which one is current. This is really important because it determines whether you can bill at the same time as your analyst. For example, with private insurance like Aetna, Cigna, Florida Blue, or Optum, you can bill concurrently. With public insurance like Medicaid, you cannot. We'll go over what this means in the scheduling section. There's also a Contacts tab where you'll find parent or caregiver information. I always recommend using this to keep families updated. It's best practice. You'll also see tabs for diagnosis and referrals. Those are optional to click on. And then there's a very important one, authorizations. This shows how many hours the client was approved for, how many are already scheduled, and how many are left unscheduled. This is how we track utilization, and our goal is always at least 80% utilization. That means clients are actually receiving the services they were approved for, and it also keeps us in good standing with the insurance. Now, let's talk about what happens if a client misses sessions or goes on vacation. Those hours are not lost. You can make them up as long as it's within the same authorization period, which is usually 6 months. Here's an example. Let's say a client cancels a 4-hour Monday session. Instead of losing those hours, you can spread them out across other days, maybe staying an extra hour Tuesday through Friday. We also allow up to 5 additional hours per week for makeups, as long as you don't exceed 40 billable hours total in a week. Supervision hours are separate. They don't count toward your 40 billable hours. Instead, they're paid at a flat $15 per hour. So if you had 4 hours of supervision, you'd see an extra $60 on your paycheck. Next, let's look at the first row of tabs. The first one is the File cabinet. This is where you'll find the client's behavior plan, along with PDFs of session notes once they're submitted. Your non-billable supervision session notes will also show up here. Remember, it's your responsibility to keep those records in case the BACB ever audits you. These aren't reviewed on our end since they're not billed to insurance. The next tab is Client Program. This is where you'll see the specific programs assigned to your client. On the left, you can select a program and view its goals, data collection method, and mastery criteria. Pay close attention here. If a program says minimum 10 trials at 100% across 5 consecutive sessions, that means the client hasn't mastered the skill until those exact conditions are met. Even if you collect fewer trials with perfect accuracy, it won't count. Most programs also include helpful supports like videos, downloadable materials, lesson plans, and error correction guides. One important note, if you see a program labeled CT, that stands for Caregiver Training. Please don't collect data on those. They're reserved for the analyst. Next, you'll find the Behavior Support tab. This is where all of the client's behaviors are listed, including definitions and data collection methods. To see the plan for each behavior, just click View Plan. Moving on, the Data Entry tab is where you can manually enter data if you missed recording it on the app. Just remember, the app only lets you enter data up until midnight. After that, the system locks for that day. This matters because session notes must include data. If there's no data, your note won't be approved. So, if you ever need to backfill, this is the place to do it. And finally, we have Analyze Data. This section allows you to look at the client's progress over time, daily, weekly, or monthly for both behaviors and skill acquisition programs. And that wraps up the Client tab section. All right, let's move on to the next section, which is the Staff tab. When you select Staff, you'll see your own name listed. Go ahead and click on it, and you'll be taken to your general information. Please make sure all of this information is accurate. For example, check that your full legal name is listed. The correct credential is shown, whether that's RBT, BCABA, or BCBA. Your phone number and address are correct. Your NPI number, Medicaid ID, and BACB ID number are all accurate. And finally, that your Social Security number at the bottom is correct. It's important to double-check this because errors here can cause delays with billing, credentialing, and even payroll. The next tab is Licenses and Certifications. This is where we keep all of the documents that have expiration dates. The most important one, of course, is your RBT, BCBA, or BCBA certification. This section will show the certification number, the original date, and the expiration date. You'll also see other compliance documents listed here, such as your background check, HIPAA training, and zero-tolerance training. Now, here's how this works. Rethink will automatically flag a document 30 days before it expires. You'll also get a notification in your Notification tab. It is your responsibility to make sure these documents are updated. Our admin team will reach out as a courtesy reminder, but ultimately it's on you to submit your updated documents. And here's the key part. You must upload them using our Google form link. Please don't email or send them through RingCentral, because if you send it to just one person and that person isn't in the office, the update won't be made. By using the form, everyone on our team can see it and update the system right away. You'll need to submit your updated document within 7 days of it expiring. That gives us enough time to process the update. If you don't, the system will automatically block you from scheduling visits, and will also remove your access until the documentation is current again. Now, there are 4 other tabs in the Staff section: Payroll, Client Assignment, Attributes, and Availability. You're welcome to look through them if you'd like, but there isn't much direct interaction required from you in those areas. Next is the Reminders tab. This allows you to set up notifications for upcoming appointments. It's optional, but it can be helpful if you like having automated reminders. And finally, in the main row of tabs, you'll see the File cabinet. This is where all of your staff documentation is stored. Every document you submitted during onboarding is here. So, for example, if a school asks you for a copy of your background check, you don't need to reach out to us. You could just go into your File cabinet, download it, and you're all set. Next, let's look at the Training tab. Once you select it, you'll see 3 different sections in the Resource and Training Center. The first one is the Intro to Autism and ABA training. This includes 11 modules that cover everyday concepts we use in our practice. These modules are required, and they must be completed within your first 30 days of employment. Each module also has a quiz at the end. If you ever have questions about the material or about a quiz, don't hesitate to reach out to your analyst for support. The second training listed is the Registered Behavior Tech training. This is the official 40-hour training required to become an RBT. Since you've already completed it, you don't need to go through it again. However, it's still a very useful resource. If you need a refresher on a specific procedure or skill, you can always come back to this training. It's broken down into short videos and modules, so it's easy to find what you need. Sometimes your analyst may even assign you to review a section as part of your professional development. As an organization, we may also require you to revisit certain trainings here from time to time. The third section is called Resources. This is a collection of tools and handouts you can download and use in your sessions. The resources are organized into categories, so if you need help creating materials, this is a great place to look. Keep in mind that if a program was added directly from the Rethink program library, the resources are often already tied to that program. In that case, you'll also be able to find them under the Behavior Support tab for each client. The next section is the Scheduling tab, and this is where you'll spend most of your time. One very important note up front: you cannot schedule visits directly from the app. All scheduling must be done on the Rethink website. Once you create your appointment there, it will automatically appear in the app, so you can collect data, verify your visit, and complete your session note. When you open the Scheduling tab, you'll see a weekly calendar view. Each white square represents an available time slot, and by clicking on one of these squares, you'll be able to enter the details of your appointment. It's important to complete the form from top to bottom, since some sections will auto-populate based on your earlier choices. The first step is selecting the visit type, and this is a critical part of scheduling. A billable type means you are running a one-on-one session with your client, and you'll be paid at your full hourly rate. A non-billable type, on the other hand, means you are in supervision with your analyst. For RBTs, these sessions are paid at a flat $15 per hour. Analysts will almost always be using the billable type when providing services, but when conducting assessments that cannot be billed to insurance, they will use non-billable instead. Once the type is chosen, you'll select the date, start time, and end time for the appointment. Pay codes should automatically appear depending on the visit type, though sometimes you'll need to double-check and adjust them if you've changed a selection manually. Billable visits should show a billable pay code. Non-billable visits may show either non-billable or concurrent supervision codes, depending on the situation. This distinction is important because the rules differ depending on the client's insurance. With Medicaid and other public insurances, you cannot bill at the same time as your analyst. That means your billable session must end before your supervision session begins, and the supervision time will be paid at $15 per hour. With private insurance, however, concurrent supervision is allowed. In this case, your billable session can continue uninterrupted, and you'll simply add a concurrent supervision entry with a $0 pay code to document that supervision occurred. This ensures compliance with BACB requirements without double paying for the same time. After this, you'll select your client and the services you're providing. RBTs should usually select 97153 for direct services, making sure the authorization matches the current date range. Analysts will select 97155 for supervision and protocol modification, 97156 for caregiver training, and 97151 for assessments. You'll also need to select the correct place of service code. For example, 02 is telehealth, 03 is school, 11 is center-based, and 12 is home. If you're at a daycare or in the community, such as a park or store, you'll use 99 for other. In the location field, you'll see a drop-down menu with all of our centers, schools, and most daycares. If you don't see the one you need, select Other, enter the address manually, and let admin know so we can add it to the system for future use. If you're providing services at the client's home, there's also a Client Home option that will auto-populate the address. You may also notice a field labeled Notes. Please do not use this for your session notes. This box is only meant for personal reminders. For example, if the school is having a spirit day and you need to wear pajamas, you could jot that down here. Session notes will always be completed later in the app once the session is finished. After completing all of the required fields, click Save at the top of the screen. If everything is correct, you'll get a confirmation. Sometimes you'll see warnings, such as the client or staff not being available during that time. Most of the time, these warnings simply mean the file is not fully updated, and you can still save. But other warnings are more serious. For instance, if the system says you don't have the proper credentials, that means one of your documents, like your RBT certification, may be expired. If that happens, you won't be able to schedule until your documents are updated. You may also see a warning that the client doesn't have an authorization in the system, which means services cannot be scheduled until that is fixed. Or you may see that another provider is already scheduled at that time, and if it's Medicaid, concurrent supervision is not allowed, so you'll need to adjust your time. After completing all of the required fields, click Save at the top of the screen. If everything is correct, you'll get a confirmation. Sometimes you'll see warnings, such as the client or staff not being available during that time. Most of the time, these warnings simply mean the file is not fully updated, and you can still save. But other warnings are more serious. For instance, if the system says you don't have the proper credentials, that means one of your documents, like your RBT certification, may be expired. If that happens, you won't be able to schedule until your documents are updated. You may also see a warning that the client doesn't have an authorization in the system, which means services cannot be scheduled until that is fixed. Or you may see that another provider is already scheduled at that time, and if it's Medicaid, concurrent supervision is not allowed, so you'll need to adjust your time. Once your appointment is saved and approved, it will appear in the app. Remember that you can only interact with appointments on the day they occur. Future visits will show up, but they'll be locked until the scheduled day and time. On your calendar, billable appointments will appear in green and non-billable in blue. A non-concurrent supervision schedule might look like this. Your billable session runs from 9 to 1 o'clock, then ends, and your supervision session is scheduled separately from 1 to 3 o'clock. In that case, you're paid your full rate for the first 4 hours and then $15 per hour for the supervision. A concurrent supervision schedule, on the other hand, would show a single billable session from 9 to 3 o'clock. You're paid your full rate the entire time, and a separate concurrent supervision entry is added at $0 just to document the supervision. Once you save your appointment and return to your calendar, you'll notice that your billable appointments appear in green, while your non-billable appointments appear in blue. Typically, your week will be filled with billable appointments, and then you'll have 1 day set aside for supervision, depending on your analyst's schedule and your client's availability. Now, let's look at the difference between concurrent and non-concurrent supervision. In the Thursday example, we see non-concurrent supervision. This means you have to clock out of your billable session before supervision begins. So, if your billable session runs from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., it ends at 1 o'clock. Then, from 1 to 3 o'clock, you are in supervision, and those 2 hours are paid at the supervision rate of $15 per hour. On Friday, however, we see concurrent supervision. In this case, you do not need to clock out when supervision begins. Instead, your billable session runs straight from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., and you're paid your full rate the entire time. From 1 to 3 o'clock, supervision occurs within that block. You are not paid separately for supervision here because you're already being paid at your full rate. The supervision entry is simply added for documentation purposes. When you look at your calendar, you may also see white diagonal lines across your visits. This indicates that all the required steps have been completed. That means you verified your times through staff verification, you obtained guardian verification in the form of a parent or teacher signature, and you submitted your session note. Once all 3 components are complete, the system will mark your visit with white lines, showing that it is officially finished. To help manage your schedule, Rethink also offers an appointment list view. At the top of the Scheduling tab, you can switch to this view and use filters to see a summary of your visits. You can filter by date range, by billable versus non-billable, or by completed versus not completed. The system will then display all visits that match your filters. This is especially useful for checking whether you've completed all requirements, such as submitting your session notes, verifying your times, and collecting guardian signatures. If anything is missing, you'll see it right away. This is the same view admin sees on our end, so it's an accurate way to double-check your work. It's also a good idea to use this feature during payroll. Since we pay on the 1st through the 15th and the 16th through the end of the month, you can filter by those date ranges to review your visits and estimate your paycheck. Just remember that the total hours shown will include both billable and non-billable sessions, so make sure to look at the breakdown. And that covers the Scheduling tab.